This is Eye on Africa, France 24's program focused on the continent. Charlie James in for Georgia Calvin-Smith this evening, and here's what's ahead. Another student kidnapping in Nigeria. This time, armed men stormed a college Friday morning, opened fire, and abducted more than 30 students. South Africa's Zulu King dies after more than 50 years on the throne. There are fears COVID restrictions could limit the funeral for the monarch of the country's largest ethnic group. And France's César Awards attempts to diversify with less than stellar results. I spoke to Franco-Nigerien actress Magaajyia Silberfeld about blazing her own trail in the French film industry. It's the third mass student kidnapping this year in northwest Nigeria. Early Friday, gunmen raided a forestry college on the outskirts of Kaduna City. At least 30 students were abducted. Police and troops have been deployed on a search and rescue operation. This part of a pattern from armed criminal gangs who kidnap students in attempts to secure a ransom. Our correspondent in Nigeria, Sam Olukoya, gave us more details.
It seems the gunmen were more interested in the female students. The moment they broke into their school, they went to the girls' hostel, and it is believed that most of those abducted were taken from the girls' hostel. This latest incident is troubling for many Nigerians. It is the first time in 3 months that armed men have broken into Nigerian schools and abducted students en masse. Within this period, at least 700 students had been abducted. These abductions are being carried out by armed groups known as bandits. They normally kidnap for ransom. They've become formidable over the years. They're better armed and better organized. In Zamfara State, where they are very active, an emir painted a gloomy picture. He said, whereas there are about 30,000 bandits operating in the state, very well armed bandits, the number of troops sent to quell their activities is put at less than 10,000. And even then, these troops are not well armed. The emir suggested negotiation, saying that a military solution cannot end this problem. But many Nigerians have insisted that negotiating with bandits is a sign of weakness. They believe the government should put up its full weight and crush the activities of these bandits. President Muhammadu Buhari has come under pressure to curtail the activities of these bandits. But there's nothing on the ground to show that the government has done enough to curtail their activities. For many Nigerians, it will be sooner rather than later before another abduction takes place in another Nigerian school.
That was France 24's Sam Olukoya. The king of South Africa's largest ethnic group, the Zulus, has died. Aged 72, Goodwill Zwelithini had been in the hospital for weeks. He was a controversial but revered figure, holding the largely ceremonial role for 50 years. Shirley Sitbon takes a look at the king's life.
King Goodwill Zwelithini led the Zulu nation for 50 years. But the legacy he passed on is centuries old. A descendant of monarchs who stood up for their people, he spent much of his time on the throne reminding South Africans of Zulu history and traditions. This statue shows his ancestor who led the Zulus during the war with the British colonizers in 1879, something he reminded Queen Elizabeth in this encounter. South Africa's constitution recognizes traditional kings, but they only have a ceremonial role. Still, King Zwelithini had great influence.
We've lost our pillar, we've lost our leader, we've lost someone who was so culturally aware.
It's a great loss. Him leading AmaZulu through difficult times, during apartheid, seeing AmaZulu nation triumph to democratic dispensation.
The king, seen here with Nelson Mandela, was crucial when South Africa became democratic in 1994. Some resorted to violence and wanted the country to break apart. King Zwelithini stood against that. He's also said to have acted decisively against AIDS. But he has also had terrible words. He referred to homosexual love life as rotten, backed physical punishment of school children. In 2015, he spoke out against foreigners, fueling deadly xenophobic violence. Days later, he condemned the violence, saying he never meant for anyone to get hurt.
Questions swirling about the health and whereabouts of Tanzania's president, John Magufuli, has not been seen in public since the end of February. The nation's opposition leader says he's been told the president is critically ill from COVID-19 and in India for treatment. But today, the prime minister denied that account, saying Magufuli is healthy and working. Our correspondent, Magaajyia, with more.
Okay. Tanzania's President John Magufuli has been out of public view for more than 2 weeks, leading many to question the state of his health. Opposition leader Tundu Lissu said yesterday that Magufuli has been brought here to Kenya's capital Nairobi for treatment for COVID-19. Kenyan press have reported the same. Lissu said that Magufuli has since been taken to India in a coma for further treatment and that the government's silence was fueling the rumors. Tanzania's Prime Minister Kassim Majaliwa has since responded, saying that Magufuli is in good health and working normally. Tanzanian government ministers have threatened people with jail time for spreading rumors. However, his continued absence has fueled speculations about his whereabouts and health in Tanzania and in the region. He is Africa's most prominent COVID-19 skeptic. He said Tanzania had defeated COVID with prayer and for months opposed any measures to stop the spread of the virus, such as social distancing and wearing of masks. He recently said that vaccines are dangerous and that herb-infused steam would fight the virus. Tanzania has not published any numbers of COVID cases since May last year, ignoring requests to do so from the World Health Organization. It was only last month that he conceded to the seriousness of the virus, but his government has been slow in enforcing significant restrictions. Several Tanzanian officials have died in recent months, although causes of deaths have not been published. The extent of the spread of the virus is not known, but some doctors say that anecdotal evidence shows that the numbers have spiked. The U.S. Embassy in Tanzania also said that cases have increased considerably since January. Last week, the Catholic Church urged people to take precautions against the virus and said that 16 nuns and 25 priests have died in the past 2 months.
Next, let's take a brief look at other top stories from across Africa. Equatorial Guinea holds a mass funeral for the 105 victims killed in a series of explosions at an army barracks. The nation's president paid homage and promised justice. Blasts leveled much of the city of Bata. At the United Nations, 31 countries issue a joint statement saying Egypt must stop using anti-terrorism laws to muzzle critics. The group of Western nations called on Egypt to end the prosecution of activists, journalists, and perceived political opponents. It's a rare rebuke, but one rights group say is overdue. And a former Mauritanian president must now submit to regular police checks after being charged with graft. Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz is suspected of corruption during his decade-long rule of the Saharan nation. He was charged along with about 10 other senior figures following a year-long investigation into alleged financial wrongdoing. France's most prestigious film awards, Les César, are being presented Friday night. This year was a chance for redemption. 2020 ceremony was marked by protests, resignations, and walkouts over the nomination and subsequent Best Director win for Roman Polanski. But this year's nominees don't offer many signs of progress for women and minorities at the awards, and there are still 0 Black board members overseeing the César Academy. It's a problem Magaajyia Silberfeld knows all too well. She's a Franco-Nigerien actress and producer who has become a voice in the French film industry against the stereotyping of Black artists and characters. I spoke to her earlier on the program about these stereotypes. Have a listen.
Black is Not My Job is a book that, it talks about the stereotypes that we get cast as, in the film industry in France, which is like babysitters, prostitutes, cleaning ladies, you name it, and it's never really about, like, when we go to casting, or we get cast in a film, it's very rarely that I get cast as who I am. It's because it serves the story. Like, it's because my skin color tells something. And that's just, really disappointing in a way, because it means that we cannot exist outside of this color, the skin's color. And yeah, that's a shame.
Why would people, insiders of the French film industry, say that it's like this? I mean, we see the same thing. It's getting better in America, for example, but still very much the case there as well. I mean, would they claim there's not an audience for these types of characters?
I don't know. I think it just stems from ignorance, really. So the difference in France is that the state finances films, the CNC. And so what happens is that at the end of the line, the script writers, they write stereotypes. And I think it comes from this ignorance. For example, if we compare it with Bridgerton, the Netflix series that was recently released, I've heard French people say like, oh, there's this black guy that was cast as a lead, but there were no black people before in the aristocracy. And it's just like, it's not true. We know now that Queen Charlotte from the 18th century, Queen Charlotte of England, she was most likely, black. She was painted as a mulatto, and she descended from a Portuguese branch, that was black. So I think, it's like, the great-grandfather of Pushkin, who was Abraham Hannibal, who also, was of African descent. He was the godson of the Tsar. So I think it's really about, like, if we stop working with these stereotypes and we can put an actual, black actor to play Dumas and not Gérard Depardieu, who is an incredible actor, but he's white. So,
well, one way that you've found to break this cycle is to create your own work, and that's advice that you give other young actors as well. But it's hard to get funding as a young woman, especially a young woman of color.
Yes, absolutely. I've been, trying to fund projects, and it's very difficult to find fundings and to be taken seriously as a woman, but also as a black woman. And I'm mixed, but I identify more as a black woman because that's what I get cast as. To get funding is just really difficult, but I hope for the best, and I think we have to create our own content. We just have to, keep helping each other as actors and as directors, because, we can't just count on, wait around and wait for casting. I think my hope is just really to create my own content with friends that are really talented and to, make this happen. I think we all have to do this.
And quickly, have you seen any positive change since last year's César ceremony?
To be honest, I'm disappointed to say no. I have not since last year seen any changes. I mean, it's also since the book, we still go to the same castings. We don't work more than before. And also, it's just a shame to say, but again, I just hope that, the best is yet to come, and that casting directors and producers will open their eyes. And also, there just needs to be laws, because just like for parody, if you want an actual change in society, you need to instigate like actual legislation for this. And until this can happen, this will not really change. So we have to be taken seriously within the government and the Ministry of Culture.
Actress Magaajyia Silberfeld sharing her experience with us earlier on France 24. That's all for this edition of Eye on Africa, but do stay with us. More news up next.